there are two places where we could have discussion about something. So,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think about that?
A great crew. It's so good to see everybody. I'm really, really happy that we're able to come together on a Tuesday night, and especially because we get Rabbi Ed to um, to be our teacher, which he has been for a very, very, very long time. I know most of you know Rabbi Ed. Um, I'm sure there's some of you who have started participating in CRC since Ed left us for the sunny climate of Southern California. But you're all going to meet him today because he's going to be our guest teacher. This is the first in a series of April guest speakers. And we thought we'd start out with a ritual that is appropriate for the season, which is counting the days of the Omer, counting the days between Passover and Shavuot, between spring and summer, between the planting time and the time of first growth, and between the story of liberation and the story of revelation. And so I'll make the blessing, and it's been 10 days as of the sunset, 10 days since the second night of Passover. We're counting all the way to 49, and the 50th day is the holiday of Shavuot. So anyone that wants to join me in the blessing, it goes like this. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ruach haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sifirat haomer. This mitzvah of counting the days between Passover and Shavuot, tonight, beginning the 10th day of our counting period. And so I'm going to do a quick introduction of Rabbi Ed, and then he's going to get started. And I know there's going to be a chance for all of us to do some interaction and studying together. But Rabbi Ed Harris is a psychologist and a rabbi living currently in Los Angeles. He was a founding member, past president, and rabbi of CRC. He teaches presently at Hebrew Union College, my rabbi alma mater, and is the rabbi of Playa Vista Jewish Community. And if it's got the name Playa in it, I'm sure it's a great place. Making me jealous, Ed. He maintains, as well as his rabbinic activities, a psychotherapy practice in California and Missouri, seeing individuals, couples, and families over Zoom. He's married to wonderful Deborah, and he's the father of Nick, Jacob, and Eliana. And just ask him, and he'll tell you he's a proud Zadie of Ava, Eliza, and Remy. I just want to say that Ed and I go back a long ways, not as far back as some of you, but we go back a long ways, Ed. And I have this incredible memory went back when I only knew James Taylor and Bob Dylan on guitar back in the early 90s. And you taught me all the Jewish music and set me on that. Really? Sitting in your living room there in Clayton, and I've learned a few since, just a few, but thanks for getting me started. And without any further words from me, our friend, our teacher, our rabbi, Ed Harris.
What an honor and a blessing to be here with you and to see you all. I don't get to see you all very much at all, so this is great. Thanks to Randy and all of CRC for inviting me. As people have been coming on, I've just been taking in, looking at you and seeing your smiling faces, and it's great to see you all. Tonight we're going to talk about Pirkei Avot. It's part of the Mishnah, which is part of the Talmud. It has a lot of our ethical teachings and the beginnings of ethical writings in Jewish tradition. It's typically read between Pesach and Shavuot. So I picked out a few verses that might serve as a guide for us, and we could use some guides now. It's been really difficult time in the last year. It's been difficult COVID-wise. It's been a challenge politically. These few verses might help us to get back on our way. There'll be a couple of times where we're going to try breakout groups, and Autumn is going to help us with this. Thank you, Autumn. So I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do this, but we're going to, so that there can be some discussion as well. And we begin with the very first line of Pirkei Avot. Moshe kibel Torah misinai u'misara lehoshua. Moses received Torah from Sinai, transmitted it, passed it down to Joshua. Joshua passed it to the elders to the prophets transmitted it to the men of the great assembly. In almost every bar bat mitzvah we have at CRC, we do this. We pass the Torah from generation to generation. What is it? Usually the elder, often a grandparent, aunt, uncle, teacher, passes the Torah to one or both parents. Maybe it gets passed to siblings. Doesn't matter if you're on the bima or not. We bring the Torah down to the first row where all the people are sitting. We pass the Torah that way. One way or the other, we pass it. And we pass it to the bar bat mitzvah, who takes it. And they walk around the sanctuary to the hakafot, thanks to Leslie and all the musicians who make that happen. The bar bat mitzvah reads and teaches us Torah. Moses received Torah, handed it to Joshua, and it goes on down the line. And we do this at CRC. It's a lineage. It's a really powerful moment, passing that Torah, because what we're passing is our history, our teachings, our love for one another. All that we have, we pass it in the same way that I passed to Randy. I hadn't even thought about this in many years. Some Jewish songs, he passes them to you. But first he adds his own Torah, and then he passes them to you. Hi, Pete. My wife is Anna, just joined. Okay. It's a lineage. The verse is important for me personally. 12 plus years ago, I stood in the sanctuary. Many of you were there. I leaned back into my teachers, Susan, Randy, and Jim. And I became a rabbi in that moment. The very end of September, Parshat Nitzavim, 2008. What does it say on my smicha document, on my ordination certificate? Moses received Torah on Sinai and passed it to Joshua. And Joshua passed it to the elders and to the prophets, and they passed it to the men of the great assembly. And today, we pass that Torah onto you, Rabbi Edwin Harris. Really powerful moment. The lineage. We pass our Torah to people, whether we know it or not, whether it's a formal teaching, as this is in some ways, or we're on the street, or we're in a Zoom room. We pass our Torah to each other all the time. Susan passed her Torah to me, many parts of her Torah, but one about the great heart of the world and how to open that great heart of the world. Randy passed his Torah to me. The first time I did an interfaith wedding, I was freaking out. I didn't know, could I do it? Should I do it? And I went to Randy and he sat down with me. I'll never forget it, Randy. You passed your Torah to me. And I've done so many weddings because of the Torah you passed to me. And Rabbi Jim, Jim tells a story of Bonya, meeting with Bonya Shore, Zichrono Livracha, who composed much of our music. And Bonya told Jim, Jim, play it this way. And Jim did. And when I went to study with Jim to learn about how to play music that would reach deep into people's souls, he told me the Bonya story and he said, Ed, play it this way. And for years, I did, passing the Torah from generation to generation. So tonight, we're going to find our Torah and pass it along, one to the other. We will teach each other. Ezahu Chacham, it says later in Pirkei Avot, who are the wise ones? The wise ones. The one that learns from everyone and the ones that also can teach as well. So I bring all of my teachings from my rabbis, from my therapist mentors to share with you. And you bring all of your wisdom tonight to share with one another. So welcome. Okay. You can't really receive another's Torah if you're stuck inside yourself. Can't do it. If you're inside physically, if you're inside yourself emotionally or withdrawn or separate from the community. Al tifrosh min hatzibur, it says. Literally, it gets translated as don't separate yourself from the community. But we know it to mean also not to withdraw yourself. And you know, it's been easy. COVID made it really easy to withdraw, physically and emotionally. We stayed inside. The world was inside. The challenge is how to come out and be a part of a community when you're so inside yourself. CRC did a really good job of this. I was part of a service on a Friday night where people were like zooming in from all over. We celebrated Randy's 18 years of being at CRC, and we're all on Zoom because we couldn't hug him in person and all be together. Even in our community where Debbie and I are, the Playa Vista Jewish community, who ever heard of Torah study on Zoom? We do it all the time. Services on Zoom. We did the Shiva and memorial service for Rabbi Mem Mavshin, Zichronah Livracha, from our community on Zoom. I just did a funeral and there were a maximum of 25 people allowed in the cemetery, all because of Zoom. So we're struggling with how to not just be inside, but how to come outside, and not separate ourselves from the community. So contemporary psychology can help. Every psychological theory has something to say about the importance of coming out and being in relationship. Most theories of depression have something to do with being out with other people, not being stuck inside yourself. Support groups, such as the group that Jamie Sentnor does at CRC, the Grief Support Group, helps people come out. The 55 plus group, and there's so many other groups. Daniel's ukulele group, you know, there are all these wonderful groups that help people come from inside to outside. And it's so important, the idea that we learn and grow in community. Two other things from psychology. One of my therapist, trainer, mentors, Irving Polster, he's well into his 90s, just wrote a book called Beyond Therapy. He talks about the importance of being in social groups, that the future of therapy may not be just therapy as we know it, although that's still good and important, but people of many of our generation coming together in groups, not theme groups or book groups or, you know, support groups, but coming together to tell their stories, coming together for fellowship, coming together to connect with one another. He calls them life focus groups. Life focus groups. And you know what? It's starting to happen here, as I know people doing them. There's another thing that helps people come out from inside their homes and inside themselves. It's called aging in place. 2 synagogues have started a consortium. There used to be 3, now there are 2. For people who want to stay in their homes and can't get to the synagogue. This is way before COVID. The synagogue goes to you. People go and volunteer. They do things together. They read, they study, they have classes. They bring you to the synagogue. The intent for those who are living more at home and they can't get out in the world. So the synagogue comes to them. It's not just in Jewish communities too. It's in a lot of communities. So here's the first passing of the Torah. I'm not sure how many people we have. It looks like 38. Autumn, can we do 12 groups of 3? How much is that? 12, 20, or 36? Can we do that?
Yep, 12 groups of 3.
Okay.
I can do that.
Well, coming up, you're going to be in a group with 2 other people. Here is your, here's the direction. What is a piece of Torah that someone passed along to you? A piece of Torah that someone passed along to you that made a difference in your life. From a rabbi, a therapist, a teacher, a parent, a child, a colleague, a friend. A piece of Torah that someone passed along to you, and a piece of Torah that you passed along to somebody else. That might be the harder one. Who did you pass it on to? Where did it happen? Because it probably didn't happen inside yourself, or maybe it was in a Zoom room. Who passed it to you and what was it? What did you pass along to somebody else? Who it was, what the teaching was. Take a few minutes and share that in your small breakout Zoom group, which Autumn now has in place. Yes, Autumn? Do they know who they are talking to?
I'm gonna click a button that says open all rooms. You should get a little square that shows up saying go to the room, and then you'll be able to meet some new folks. And
this is wonderful. Thank you so much. They are inviting you to join room 7. I'm joining a room. I'm joining.
I'm assuming I'm not in a group because I'm a host.
We are back. We are back, everybody. Thank you, Autumn. I forgot to say about 10 minutes, there'll be another one toward the end, also about 10 minutes. Okay, we shared our Torah. So here's the next thing. Hakol tzafui, v'harshut netuna. Also from Pirkei Avot. Everything is foreseen and the freedom of choice is given. Like, it's a hard one for me. It's a major theological challenge. Many religious Jews believe that everything is in God's hands and it's already determined. And if God knows what's going to happen, do we really have any choice or any free will? So where do we get it from? God says, I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart. There are going to be all these plagues, and they all happen. So there are a lot of places where we think, well, God's really in charge. So what are we, chopped liver? Do we really have a say? Susan teaches about co-creation, that God sets up the framework and we determine what happens. It's a good way to think about determinism and free will. In psychology terms and in medicine, we have this a little bit differently. We have the idea of something that's genetically predisposed. It's already set up. You can't really argue with it. It comes via genetics. And how much can we really choose? So if somebody's psychotic and hearing voices, can they really choose a different path without something like medicine? It's a tough one. There are some therapists on the radical side who don't believe in medicine at all, don't believe in genetics at all. It's all, in your hands. The popular wisdom is that in the medicine and psychology fields, it's similar to in the theological field, that there is something arranged, and it's our opportunity to make something happen. So do we really have freedom of choice? Again, psychology can help here. What is contemporary psychology's greatest hit? Contemporary psychology's greatest hit. In the still of the night of psychology. The I want to hold your hand of psychology. The yesterday of psychology. The I can't get no satisfaction. What is psychology's greatest hit? The bad guy. You know that song? I didn't until a while ago. It's from Billie Eilish. Billie Eilish. The only reason I know about Billie Eilish is our granddaughter, who's almost 10, loves Billie Eilish, knows every single song, and Bad Guy won some Grammys and a bunch of things. So that's one of her greatest hits. But what is contemporary psychology's greatest hit? Maybe it's the development of the unconscious and unconscious process. I think it's about choice. Contemporary psychology's greatest hit is about choice. We choose what we think, how we process things, how we respond to those around us. We have the ability to choose. And almost every contemporary psychological theory and theory of therapy says something about becoming aware and being able to choose. We have that ability. Best stated by Viktor Frankl, who was a psychiatrist and a survivor of Theresienstadt concentration camp. And he wrote, Man's Search for Meaning. And he says, everything can be taken from a person, but his or her ability to choose their own way. It's very powerful. Even if there's something genetically predisposed, the power of being able to choose is there. We have it. We have it. Anybody want to ask anything before we go on? Either raise a hand, just unmute and ask something. Marty and Michael, you're there on the screen. Okay. Anybody want to ask anything? Ask anything? Say anything. I'm not here. Yes, Renee.
Okay.
Unmute and say.
I'm recalling a quote from Isaac Bashevis Singer when he was asked if he believed in free will. He said, "I have no choice."
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Well, we have the choice. That's the thing. We have the choice. Anybody else want to say? Question. I'm not sure I can see every hand, but I'm going back to the other screen. Anybody else want to say? We're going on.
Rudy has a question.
Somebody has a question. Ask your question.
Yeah, hi. Is Billie Eilish related to Billy Idol?
No. Billy Idol is no relation.
Okay.
As far as I know. Thanks, Rudy. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So the next few verses we have are about our choices. I'm going to go to this view here, gallery view. Listen to this one. Ein biadenu lo mishalvat harshaim. It's not in our hands to understand mishalvat harshaim, the tranquility of the wicked. Va'af lo misurei hatzadikim, or the suffering of the righteous. It's beyond our understanding to get how some people are okay and some people suffer. We can't really understand. It's beyond, out of our hands. Can't understand certain things. I have a friend, been my friend for 50 years, over 50 years. We met in college. We protested together the war in Vietnam. We protested the presence of companies like Dow Chemical, who made napalm, and they were part of the military industrial complex, and they would come to the college campus and try to recruit. We protested together, me and my friend. He voted for Trump twice. We don't talk very much these days like we used to. It's clearly in the way. It's affected our friendship. And I've heard this over the years. We're getting ready to have Thanksgiving at Aunt so-and-so's house, and I know there's going to be somebody there that has such different views. I don't know what to do, and I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Then I watch Rachel Maddow, Lawrence O'Donnell, Brian Williams. This is our like nighttime routine for the last few years. And we see and hear things and we say, I can't believe I'm seeing this. I can't believe I'm hearing. Why are they doing this? And the idea of trying to change somebody's mind, psychologists tell us, you can't argue facts. You can't. Contemporary psychology says that trying to understand the incomprehensible, results in our feeling sad and helpless and powerless and angry, because we're putting our energy into something that probably can't or won't change. It probably can't or won't change. Why are they like this? There is no answer to that. There's nothing that we can come up with to explain the things that are unexplainable, that just are how they are because they are that way. It's really difficult to choose to give up the need to understand what seems incomprehensible. Really hard to do that. We're looking for a way to make sense out of something that seems nonsensical or less sensical to us. Anybody want to say anything? Question, comment? Yes, question, no question. Susan Spiegel, is your hand?
No,
You, Susan
yes.
Spiegel.
I am. I didn't know that hand was there. Yeah, that sounds like a very anti-science perspective. If you say that, I don't remember exactly how you said it, but you know, that it's not for us to understand the incomprehensible. You know, the impetus for scientific discovery is often to try to find out the incomprehensible. So you know, perhaps you're talking about it more in relational, you know, like people
Totally.
to people or people to God, but not in an everyday kind of way, because this seems like a barrier, and it makes me think that this is perhaps where some of that evangelical anti-science comes from. It is this kind of interpretation, if that's the right word.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I so appreciate the clarification. This is not across the board that it's not for us to understand. This is in a relationship sense, our relationship with somebody else or our relationship with God, which is often incomprehensible. I mean, we search and search and search and search and search even more. So yes, the scientific inquiry can go on and needs to go on. Maybe that's how we got the vaccine that we are so blessed to have. But in the interpersonal sense, where there are some things that we just don't get or understand from another person. And are we going to keep putting our time and energy into that or not? And the most important people, you probably will, but some people you might not. Carl, hi, Carl Smith. Unmute yourself.
Hi, Ed. It's so good to see you again.
Thank you. You too.
Yes. I'm faced with a situation where we have a house in Minnesota. My son and his family come there every year. My wife and I, Sue and I, have been vaccinated. We're in our 80s. And I want my son to be vaccinated in order for him to come and join us.
Yes.
And his family. And he's very militant. No one is going to interfere with his freedom. He doesn't trust this mRNA stuff. And we've had 2 discussions which haven't moved either of us. And it's very frustrating to me. And it involves a relationship with someone I'm close to. And as Josh says to me, you're 86, which is true. And how many years can you, with your grandchildren and all that stuff? And so we're in this frustrating situation.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm just laying it out.
Yeah. So I you know, my heart goes out to you. This is the kind of thing that we are talking about, that Pirkei Avot tries to address, because it seems, it just seems like in some instances there is no middle, there is no reconciliation. Heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking. Rudy, you want to say? Then we'll go on.
I just have a question and a statement. Instead of not knowing what people are going through, you should ask what their hobbies are, and so you can get a sense of who they are.
Say it again. I'm not sure I understood.
What I'm saying is, instead of judging someone, like at a Thanksgiving table, see what their hobbies are and see if you can relate to them.
Oh, okay. So one thing you're offering is that you avoid certain topics for which there is no understanding or much relating, and focus on something where you can. I actually do this with my friend. How are your grandchildren? How are your grandchildren? Show me pictures of your grandchildren. It took a long time to be able to move away from certain elephants that occupy the room to be able to get to do what you in your rabbinic wisdom are suggesting. Okay. Okay, Michael, and then we'll go on to the next one.
Ed, I so appreciate your sharing story about your long time college friendship, because I too have experienced that with some very, very long, dear friendships that I've had. You know, one guy was, you know, one of my longest term golfing buddies, and we were very, very close friends. And we had such a screaming match over the telephone. He lives out in Mesa, Arizona now. And it saddened me so much that we had that kind of a fight over the phone. And yeah, so it's not really a question that I have, but I feel validated from your story because I have several friends who are Trumpers, and it breaks my heart.
Yes, yes, I hear what you're saying. Okay, so another one that goes to our being able to be choiceful. V'hevei zanav la'arayot. Be a tail to lions. A Tail. I'm going to come back here to this screen. V'hevei zanav la'arayot. V'al tihi rosh l'shualim. Be a tail to lions, not a head to foxes. What? Anybody? What are they talking about? Unmute and just say. There are 2 or 3 levels of this one. Be a tail to lions, not a head to foxes.
Well, if you can't do a whole lot, at least you can brush away the flies.
Yeah.
And then he can think better because he's not distracted with all the flies on his hide.
Okay. All right. So that's good. Okay. Good. Anybody else? Be a tail to lions, not a head to foxes. Brushing off the flies is one. Anybody else? Just unmute and say. Helene and George, are you just moving your hands or are you raising?
No, I was saying a tail to a lion is follow those that you can't do much about, and don't be the mouth of things you can maybe do something about.
Okay, it has to do with following, and okay, so that's good. So one of the interpretations of this is, who are you going to join up with? Who are you going to associate with? Who are you going to follow? You're going to follow a lion, a strong person, or, you know, lead a bunch of people that are sort of crafty and sly. Okay. But there's another deeper level of this. So Debbie and I taught a class last weekend on Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs. It's the Megillah that is read for around Passover time. There's a wonderful line in the Song of Songs filled with imagery of nature and love and intimacy and sexuality and, you know, wonder and beauty and spices. And then there's this line. Echazu lanu shualim katanim. Seize for yourself or catch for yourself foxes, shualim katanim, little foxes, mechablim karamim. They are the destroyers of your vineyard.
Of your what?
Destroyers of your vineyard. Seize for yourself foxes, little foxes. Catch them because they will destroy your vineyard. What's happening here? In your relationships, your relationship with yourself, with a partner, with a friend, with God. After some time, you know, we see people come to CRC, they're in love with all that we do. You meet somebody for the first time, you're in love with the person, and it's all great. You find God, and it's all great in the beginning. If you're in a relationship with someone, the first year is great. They call it the honeymoon phase. Then what happens? Your foxes come out. The first thing you'll do is you'll see your partner's foxes, but yours come out too. What are your little foxes? Those sly little things, your issues, your triggers, your unfinished business, your stuff, your hurts, your prior things that come out. And you start having difficulties, struggles. The foxes, if not dealt with, destroy the vineyard of your relationships. Makablim. Machablim karamim. They destroy the vineyards. So not only do we want to choose who to be with, but once we choose, we want to be aware of our foxes. What are they? What gets triggered in me being around you? What gets triggered? I had the honor and privilege a few weeks ago to talk to a group in St. Louis of people who have been married and or partnered for many years. Many years. Not such an easy thing. You know, Debbie and I will be married 39 years in June. I've seen a lot of her foxes and she's seen a lot of mine. Now she happens to have more than I do. No, I'm just kidding. But, so what are the foxes? What's getting triggered? What is this? And can you bring that to your partner in a caring, loving way at a lower level of intensity? Who you choose to be with, and can you choose to get in touch with your foxes and bring them? Okay. So I want to see if anybody has anything about that. We have actually 2 more to do and 1 more experiential thing. Anybody want to comment on your foxes? Your foxes? Anybody want to say? It's a little bit of a private thing, I understand. Marty Miller is going to talk about her foxes.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I have more foxes than Michael, but besides that, what about being with people who are not in your comfort zone? What about stretching yourself? Not to talk about like the Trumpkins, but what about stretching yourself to be with people who challenge you?
Okay, say a little bit more about your question because I'm not sure I'm understanding it. What if could be a great thing to be with people where you're out of your comfort zone and they challenge you intellectually or emotionally, spiritually, anyway.
Right. So it's really easy to be with people who think the same way you do.
Yes.
It's easy.
Yep. Yeah.
Is it important for us to be with people that don't think the same way we do? That have different kinds of foxes than we do?
Well, so I would say yes to that, because that's what keeps us sharp. That's what keeps us growing. That's what keeps us learning. And regardless of who you're with, whether you know the person really well or not, or they're new, some things will come up. Some of these triggers, they're going to say something that triggers you, that you don't like, that upsets you. That's not a bad thing. That's not a reason to move away from them. It might be to talk about it. And that's dealing with the foxes, whether you're with a familiar person or new people, you know? So
Okay.
That's what happens when you go to an oneg at CRC after the service. Maybe it happens on Zoom, I think, but when it used to happen in the real space, you would meet people, and that's a wonderful thing. And they're not, just because they're at CRC, they're not always like you, you know?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're good. 2 more. Okay. Ezehu Ashir Hasameach B'chako. Who is rich? The one who is happy with his or her portion. So the rabbis knew 2,000 years ago when they were writing this stuff that we're going to want more than we have, that we're going to want what we don't have that someone else has. We first hear about it in the 10 Commandments. Lo tachmod beit re'echa. You won't covet your neighbor's house, wife, stuff, property, anything that belongs to your neighbor. Problem is, we don't know how to not want those things. Telling somebody not to want it doesn't help them not want it. Don't want this. Madison Avenue spends millions of dollars getting us to want stuff that we don't have or need. Millions of dollars. Buy this, buy that. You'll be happy with this. You'll like this. You need that. You need this. Pirkei Avot says it differently. Ezahu Ashir, who is rich, the one who's happy with his or her portion, but still, we don't really know how to do this. We don't know how to do this. How can you be happy with your portion? Then we have the 1960s. The 1960s, civil rights movement, the women's movement, the anti-war movement, all hugely important. And along with those movements came the increase in wanting personal freedom, sexual freedom, personal freedoms. It may have led to I can and should be entitled to get what I want. I should get what I want. How to get what you want fits right into this. I should be able to get what I want. And I'm entitled to get what I want. We had this for many years until Timothy Miller's book came out some 20 years later. The title, How to Want What You Have. Really different. Not how to have what you want or how to get what you want, how to want what you have. Bestseller. What's the focus? Gratitude. If you can be grateful for what you have, it's not that you're never going to want more or never going to want what somebody else has that you don't have. The idea is by focusing on what you have that you're grateful for, you may want less of what the other one has that you don't have. That's the idea. And we can choose to focus on our gratitude. Wanting what you have, not necessarily trying to have what you want. There are a lot of real positives about gratitude. I'm just going to tell you. Positive psychology, it's been around for 20-something years, has done a lot of research. And what they found is that people who have a gratitude practice have better health, lower heart rate, lower blood pressure, better sense of satisfaction, better relationships. They're happier. You can't make this stuff up, really. Every morning, I walk Molly the dog. This is the dog that Debbie and I got, our COVID dog. We're inside all the time, inside, outside. I couldn't play basketball. There was a period of time where I couldn't go to the ocean because the beaches were closed. We were really in. We got a dog, Molly the dog. She's great. Part beagle, part lab, 5 years old, really sweet. I walk her every morning. It's great exercise for me. Every day on our walk, Moda ani lefanecha ruachai v'kayam shechazarta b'nishmati b'chemla Rabbi emunatecha. Thank you, God, for returning my soul to me. And I say all the things I'm grateful for. Molly turns around. Really? Really, Dad? Really? Yeah, really, really. If you don't have a gratitude practice, if you don't, I want you to consider this. It can start with, I'm really happy about I'm really glad I have. I'm so grateful I have. Make a list. even if you're hurting or sick. There's a Yiddish proverb. When a Jew breaks his leg, he thanks God he didn't break both legs. There's always a little bit of gratitude. We're grateful for something. And actually, when you start making your list, you'll be amazed at your list growing. Go through it every day. I do it when I wake up in the morning and I'm walking Molly. Go through your list. Do it for a month. Do it for a month on a regular basis. See if it makes a difference. You just might find that you're wanting more of what you have and less wanting what you don't have. Okay, second breakout group. So we'll take 10 minutes. Okay, 10 minutes. If Autumn, what do we, are we going to be in the same group, a different group? I'm going to leave all that to you.
Yep, I'll just keep y'all in your same group
All
so
right,
you
we're
can
gonna
keep
be at
building
the-
relationships.
Okay, great. That's great. I
Right.
love that. So we're going to be in the same Zoom room, breakout room. Let's take 10 minutes. And here's the thing to share. One thing or two or three. If you have one, that's great. If you have two or three, it's even better. Things that you're really grateful for. Say what they are and say a little bit about it. And feel what it's like to say that. Sharing your gratitude with people that you just met. We'll come back in 10 minutes. Autumn, will you just take care of that in 10 minutes? Or we'll leave the
Yes.
room in 10 minutes and come back together.
I'll bring you back.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Hey, Dawn, can you hear me? I mean, Autumn, sorry, can you hear me?
Hey, yes.
Hi. Okay. So Nancy and I were in one by ourselves, and she's living with her 104-year-old father, and she's constantly having to take care of him. So she has a caregiver that's there now, so she can't participate. Can I be put in with maybe Judy Best with
Yeah,
her
let's
group?
see. Let me find her real quick. Judy Best.
Uh-huh.
I don't see her anywhere.
It's J Best. Or if there's another group of only two.
Yeah, because I don't see Jay Best anywhere. So I will send you. I'll put you with, how about Deb Harris and Paul Hershkowitz? They're by themselves.
That sounds great. Okay.
Okay. There you go.
Thank you. Will I get an invite?
Yeah, it should have popped up a little box or something.
It didn't. Well, I could share with you.
Sure.
Okay, so you first. What are you really grateful for?
What was the question? I don't.
Okay. Something 1, 2, 3, whatever, things for which we are really grateful.
We were just discussing whether or not we had a choice to stay in the room. Apparently we did not.
Marion?
I
Yes.
am the Zoom wizard.
First of all, hello, Marion.
Hello.
And second of all, you always have a choice.
Should I hit the leave button? No, I have a choice. It's
You do.
No,
Hi, Jonathan.
The challenge is to love being back in the group because that's what we got.
Free will, you're right.
And I, for one, am grateful that you're back.
Marion, the Chicago Seven's racking up all kinds of awards. The movie.
It should.
Yeah.
Here's one of the night, and we'll take a couple questions, maybe if you have them.
Say it again, Ed.
Last one for tonight. So we're starting to come in for a landing here, to use one of Reb Zalman's many phrases. Shuv yom echad lifnei mitatach. Repent one day before your death. Kind of a curious statement. Repent one day before your death. So there's a story in the Talmud about Rabbi Eliezer, who taught his students and said, repent one day before your death. And one of the students said, well, how are we going to know when one day is before we die? And the rabbi said, all the more reason to do this every day.
Hey, Rabbi Ed, are you touching around where your microphone is? We're getting a lot of like fuzzy sounds, but you're the only one unmuted.
How about now?
Okay, hopefully that worked.
Okay. So what is this? So we hear about repentance on Yom Kippur. This will sound familiar to you. Utshuva tefillah tzedakah ma'avirin et roa hagazera. I can't sing it as good as Alan Freed does, but repentance, prayer, and charity temper judgment's severe decree. Repentance. But teshuva also means turning or returning. So yeah, you could repent one day before you die or every day, but I want to think about this a different way. So we're going to go out with this one. Teshuva is a kind of returning. Returning to what? I think about it as returning to your highest and best self. And if you're returning, you've been there before. You're not getting on a plane and going someplace new. You're coming back to what's yours, your highest and best self. And the importance, according to the story, is to do this every day. So what is it actually? The other thing I ask myself when I'm walking with Molly is, what do I need to do today to be my highest and best self? With Debbie, with my children and grandchildren, if I'm going to see them, with my clients, with my community. I already asked this morning about doing this with you. What do I need to do to come from my highest and best self? What will I say? What will I do? How will I respond? And we all have this part of ourselves. That's one way to think about the holidays. is that we're returning to our highest and best self. Tshuva. So I want to ask you to think about this. Maybe you'll start getting up in the morning and saying a form of Modeh Ani, of being able to say what you're grateful for. Maybe you'll add, what do I need to do to return to my highest and best self? What do I need to do to return to my highest and best self? That's the teshuvah. How can I be my best self today? So here's the summary. This might help us come out of COVID, get more with ourselves, strengthen our relationships. Pass your Torah and be open to receiving Torah from others. Pass your Torah, be open to receiving it from others. Connect to your community. Recognize your ability to choose. Let go of trying to understand the relationship part of what seems incomprehensible to you. Identify and deal with your foxes. Practice gratitude and return to your highest and best self. We have 6 minutes. Anybody want to say anything or ask anything as a way to finish for tonight? Yes,
Ed,
there. Yeah.
Thank you, Ed, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. Hey, Sarah.
Hi, Ed.
Good to see you.
Hi, Rabbi Ed. Yeah. Could you write that, or could Autumn? Could you write what he just said? I'm starting to type it on my phone. I didn't get everything. The summary that you just did. That was wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Thank you
summary?
so much. This was great.
Thank you. Want me to say them again? I'll say it again.
Okay.
Pass your Torah and be open to receiving Torah from others. Connect to your community. Recognize your ability to choose. Let go of trying to understand what's incomprehensible in your relationships. Identify and deal with your foxes. Practice gratitude and return to your highest and best self. Those were the 7 verses from tonight.
Thank you. Okay.
Rabbi Ed?
Yes.
It's Nancy. How are you?
Hi, Nancy.
Nancy Weigly.
Hi, Nancy Weigly.
How are you? Just such a treat to have you here, and thank you for doing this. It was, and just seeing so many faces that I haven't seen in so long. There's a part of me that's like so filled with gratitude, but also just sad. I miss everybody. So thank you for bringing us all together tonight. It's just awesome to hear you.
You are on my screen right next to Cheryl Adelstein, from one example to another, with John in the middle maybe, but so.
Well, Rabbi Ed, I needed to log on because you have a calming presence in my life, and just hearing your voice has brought me gratitude. Thank you for continuing to be a part of our community.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes.
Can we do this again next month, please?
Or next week.
Next week, sure.
Tomorrow.
We can, Randy and I will talk. Anybody else want to say or ask?
I want to say that I love seeing Debbie's face too. And Leslie and Marion. Yeah, it's really unbelievable because I think what Cheryl didn't say, or Nancy also didn't say, is where some of us are so zoomed out because of our work that looking at a screen has just become, it makes you, feel like you're losing your mind. So the end of the day to try and do it's really hard. But I knew what this was going to be. I told Cheryl last week, I was like, I am not going to miss a minute of this juice. And it was everything I hoped for. So thank you. It was great.
Thanks, Diane. It's so good to see all of you. I look forward to a day when we can be in the same actual room together, not necessarily a Zoom room. And may that be one day, sooner than later. May it be so.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen is right.
Thank you.
Let me, on behalf of everybody that hasn't been able to express their gratitude, express our gratitude to you, my friend Ed. One thing that he kind of, Ed did something unbeknownst to some of us, which is that this is what you're supposed to be doing on the Omer period, is studying Pirkei Avot. So you put it through the lens of psychology, which you always do so beautifully and brilliantly, and made an ancient text be part of our day-to-day life and healing, what we need so badly. So really, really thank you. We've been excited and anxiously awaiting these moments. So I would like to just, while everyone's here, let everyone know that Rabbi Ed is the inaugural guest scholar in our April University series. Next Tuesday at 7 o'clock is Rabbi Rachel Contraster, who will be speaking about organizations for social responsibility and human rights. Rabbi Rachel is one of the truer rabbis who really is making a difference in social justice in the world. 2 weeks from tonight, Tuesday, April 20th, Rabbi Zach Fredman, someone Rabbi Ed knows very well. Zach grew up in St. Louis and at CRC and has become a rabbi. One of my favorite Zach Fredman stories has to do with Daniel, Rabbi Daniel. When Rabbi Daniel was about to start rabbinical school, Zach happened to be visiting and we were on the bima, and Susan said, Zach, give Danny some advice as he goes off to rabbinical school. And Zach, without missing a beat, said, it'll take the soul right out of you. It was a classic moment. But everyone did okay anyway. And then Monday, this is important because these are usually on Tuesday, Monday, April 26th, Rabbi Capers Funay from Chicago, who leads an all African-American Jewish community in Marquette Park, which as a Chicagoan, I know as a former hotbed of Nazi and Klan awfulness. And now Rabbi Funay leads a Black Jewish congregation. It's one of the great stories of our day. And so that's Monday, April 26th. So come on back and let's learn from each other and learn from our guests and take another look at the punams on the screen and another look at Rabbi Ed's and Debbie's punams. And we, like you said, Ed, we can't wait till we're all back together, until you guys visit St. Louis, and we can really have a wonderful reunion with our best selves, all present.
That's great. Thank you all. Thanks, Randy. Thank you, Autumn, for your help. Thank you all. Good seeing you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Autumn, thank you.